Okay, this is a little chat about a bunch of really important things. First, I want to start out with how you get basic shapes into ZBrush rather than dealing with some of the projects, built-in projects. How do you get regular, just like cubes and spheres and things like that to work with to start as something you might want to use? Well, you start out with the tool palette over here, and you click on this, and you can select any of these guys. Okay, stay away from z-spheres right now. We're going to get to those in the second project. Okay, so if I click sphere 3D, I get this, and then all I need to do is drag it in, and then if I hold the shift key down while I'm dragging it, keeps it straight. Okay, and then you need to hit the T key. Okay, edit the object. Now you'd think you could just roll along right here and then start sculpting, but you can't. Okay, these objects in this palette that have 3D after them are actually not 3D yet. Well, they are 3D, but they are procedurally generated. So that's kind of just a fancy way of saying they're just an algorithm that says, you know, this many things tilted this way and move it around until you get to something that looks like a sphere. But why would ZBrush do that? Because you can use those to change the way these things look before you actually turn them into something you can sculpt. And you do that by clicking this initialize button down here. Okay, so if you want to like flatten something out, you can do that. This kind of thing. You can change how much of these, how much geometry you've got working with here, things like that. Okay, let me show you with one that's a little more clear how that might be useful. For instance, let's do the cone here. Where is it? There it is, cone 3D. Okay, same deal. Drag this out and hit the T key. Puts me in edit mode. I'm going to turn on polyframe so you can see what's actually going on here. And then if I look at initialize, I can taper the top, for instance. Okay, so I can flatten this out. Zoom out, you'll see a little better what's going on, like that. Okay, I can also change or add a radius to the interior of this. Okay, to give this thing some thickness, some dimension, like a hole or a funnel or something like that. Okay, and then if I do want to sculpt on this, all I need to do is change it to something called a Polymesh 3D. You do that just with this button right here. If I click on that, whoop, it turns it into something that I can then edit with the sculpting tools like we're used to. Okay, so if I wanted to, you know, start pulling on this or doing something else with it, it would then react accordingly like you would expect some of that geometry to do. Okay, this is kind of interesting because there are some kind of funky ones that might be useful if you're making hair or things like that. Let me get out of here and just clear this out. So for instance, let's say this helix, okay, a spring-like shape, okay. Again, if I hit T or hit the edit button up there, I can then change these initialize settings to give it a different look, okay. So for instance, I can change the radius here. Now for these, you actually have curves that you can edit, okay. So you can change how you want this thing to look like that. You can drag these things out to delete them as well. If you want just a straight spring, you can just drag it off this little graph here. The profile. So right now it's round, but I can modify that, and you can add points to this just by clicking on it. Okay, and you can kind of see what that's doing as well. So there's some kind of interesting things. These align buttons just flip it in different directions in relationship to the floor. Okay, and you probably usually just want that on Y, like so. Okay, this other stuff I won't go into. Z offset, there's another one here. Okay, so you can give that thing a sort of an attenuation so it moves from one more dense area to a lesser dense area, like so. Okay. And then once you've got that, you can turn it into a Polymesh 3D and use it, sculpt with it, do other things with it as well. Okay. So just want to kind of let you know that these primitives, these are called primitives in most 3D programs, you have to actually do something to them. You don't need to adjust the initialize settings, but you do need to turn them into a Polymesh 3D to use them with your sculpts. Okay. So just pay attention to that and you should be good to go with that, and more on this stuff in the next video. Okay.